Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, April the 25th, and you'll be a little surprised to see where I'm filming, but we all know this is my favorite location for filming because it gives me the best light. I think most of you, this is your favorite filming location as well. But I did wake up this morning to snow, so that was not so good. Which was then, it warmed up a little bit, turned into rain, but then it meant you could hear all the rain falling on the roof here. And so then I waited a little bit more and then the sun came out. So between the sun and a space heater running and my crib blanket, my warm fuzzy crib blanket, I'm filming in this room anyway. Warmer weather is going to come surely soon, according to me. I know that's not really true. I've got another at least 3 weeks of, you know, potential weirdness, and then we're going to be fine. But anyway, this is a channel about cross stitch and the stitching that I have done over the past week. If you are a new viewer, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. If you're a returning viewer, I truly appreciate all of you who come back week after week to see my sometimes very slow progress on some repetitive projects occasionally, which we'll talk about very shortly, and to hear sometimes my discussion topics. And as always, every week, if you have any questions, comments, or topics that you would like me to address, always happy to have those comments and dialogue and suggestions. And certainly from last week's video, which was a request from a viewer, and the comments that I've gotten back, a lot of you were very happy that I did one on scroll rods and didn't know all of the different types that were out there. And clearly from the ones I showed, I'm up for trying every and any scroll rod ever. But with that, I have notes this week. So a couple of things on some clarifications, corrections, and responses to some comments. I laughed when I was doing things. So I went and I did some of my, back checking after I recorded the video, which is always helpful. Omanic, the factory is in Estonia. As soon as I got to the site, I went, Estonia, I should have known that, but I didn't. But I will say I did check their prices, and compared to what the prices were when I bought my Omanic frame, the prices have gone up. So sorry about that. They're probably a little more expensive, but they're more expensive than the other scroll rods that I talked about. They are certainly no more expensive than what a Millennium frame is. So take that into account. I was like going, thank heavens I was an early adopter, which is usually not like me. But anyway, so the funny thing about the Omanic one is that by coincidence, Caroline from Off the Grid Needlearts, who is also on YouTube, if you check out her video from this last Monday, so April the 19th, she just bought herself an Omanic frame. Apparently she's been coveting an Omanic since she saw Gerald Ginger Stitcher using one. Anyway, so she just got one, and so you can go and look at that video and see her review of the product. I will, in the notes below, I will put a link to that exact episode just so you can easily find it. Now, she bought hers from a Canadian cross-stitch store in British Columbia called Bugs X Stitch. And so in her video, she's got a link to that store. I did go over and I had a quick look over there. Did the conversion in prices for me to Canadian dollars. So I will say the prices on Bugs X Stitch shop are slightly cheaper than what I would be paying if I was getting it directly from Estonia now. So that was an interesting thing for me. If you're in the US, I will also just point out you'll have to check out your shipping because, again, if you're shopping from a Canadian, as soon as you hit international shipping, the rates do go up. So just as you're checking out, just make sure you watch all the different line items and see how comfortable you are before you place your order. And again, if you place it well with her, you have to pay as you go. So anyway, you know what I mean. But it was interesting. So I did go to Bugs X Stitch. They do have Omonics currently in stock. So if nothing else, they are currently on the continent. There is another Canadian store that also sells Omonic frames, which is Charting Creations, which, see, in my head, I just go Maritimes. I think she's in Nova Scotia. I'm pretty sure she's in Nova Scotia. She has some, but she's sold out of quite a few of the options, but that is another option for you if you're looking for somebody on the continent being North America, the continent, that is carrying those. The other thing that I got from Caroline, that same video from Caroline from Off the Grid Needlearts, is that, remember how last week I was going on about how the DMC color cards were hard to find? Well, she's got 10, and she's got them in her Evertote store. So if you're looking for one that, so she's got the new versions that have the thread in them, that is up to date, has like all of the DMC colors in existence right now. Certainly when she recorded the video almost a week ago, she had 10 of them in stock. I did not check this morning to see how many of them she still has left in stock, but that was another option. All right. Correction, I was talking about some of those other side tension things that you can get, and I said I was concerned about the hooks hooking into the fabric. Well, it's because I don't know what I'm talking about. So I went back and looked at some of the projects. They too use clips. Those little hook thingies that I was thinking about are actually the things that hook onto the loop of the tensioner to adjust the tension. So my concern about the hooks is completely and utterly unwarranted. It has nothing to do with how those side tensioners work. Again, you know, in case I ever lose mine, I know that product is out there, but I'm sticking with the 4 that I have because I know how to use them accurately. I have them, I'm using them, they work for me. That's where we go on that one. On that topic, Tina Stitches had a really great comment where she said one of the things that she uses to help with where you've got a lot of the stitching in the center of your project, and so when you're rolling, it sort of makes it naturally uneven because you're rolling up stuff that is, you know, potentially full coverage for X and then nothing on the sides, is she uses batting on the sides as she's rolling up to help keep that tension across the piece, which I think is a fantastic idea. I haven't put it into practice yet. Check back later. I think it's a great tip, and we all know I've got batting in the house, so it is in my list of things to try out. So maybe on this project that I'm going to start in May, I may be trying it out on that one as well. Anyway, we'll talk about the new project in a bit at the end when we get to the subject. Anyway, but I thought that was a great tip from Tina, so thank you so much for putting that down there. Okay, the other thing that I was talking about, I kept saying frames. I really meant stands, not frames. So I'm assuming that all of you just sat at home and went, she's lost her mind. When I was talking about all the frames that I use, my tabletop frame and my floor one, they're stands. The name, so I put a link to in last week's video, I put a link to the tabletop stand that I use because that's still available on Etsy. I went back and I did find the name of the guy that I bought my floor stand from, and his name is Mike Rowland. He has retired. He retired in 2019, so you can't get his stands. But if you come across them, if you see somebody talking about a Rowland stand, or it could even be a Roland, so it's spelled R-O-W-L-A-N-D, that's the floor stand that I have, and I like it. In last week's video, in case you were looking, I did put a link to his Etsy store, which is now closed, but he still has the reviews and the pictures of there from people who reviewed it online. So if you wanted to see what it looked like, those pictures are there. I did go back and looked at them and said, man, he had a tabletop stand. I should have ordered that too. What was wrong with me? But I'm pretty sure when I got my floor stand, I went, this is all I'm going to need. Why would I why would I need anything besides this? But anyway, lessons learned. So if I ever come across a Rowland tabletop one, I'm probably going to try and get that one. Anyway. And again, just on the stand front, I'm not sure that I covered it very clearly. When I think you need to assess what you are intending on using your stand for, whether it's a tabletop stand or whether it's a floor stand. You need to know what you're planning on using it for. So for example, whether you're using it for a hoop, a Q-snap, scroll rods, some of them, you know, again, from that Facebook group that I linked last week about the discussion group about scroll rods and stands, there are people always there that have versions of things where they go, I really struggle getting my Q-snap into this. You know, I had to find a workaround, or, you know, different kinds of scroll rods which do or do not fit into certain stands. So those ones I haven't paid much attention to, simply because, you know, the version that I have, you don't have anything to clamp it to. You just put your thing on top of the bars and, you know, you're set to go. So if you're looking at something other than that, you really do need to pay attention to what you're using. And again, look at those reviews and see, you know, what people have to say on that. All right. Oh yeah. I was like, what is my comment here about furniture? Yeah. Also have to know what you're using it with. So if the chair that you're using is completely open underneath, that leads you to what can or cannot slide under your furniture. If you're sitting in a recliner that you do tend to recline on, that may lead you in a completely different version. And again, like I was looking at somebody's comment in the group where they were like going, you know, for health reasons, they really do need, when they sit and stitch, they need to have their legs elevated for health reasons. So some of, like my stand, if you need that, my stand is not going to work, period, because it's not going to work. So you really do need to know what you're going to use it with, the piece of furniture that you're using it with. Again, if you're using it with a recliner, depending on the mechanisms, you know, people have commented in the group on stands that don't work because of the mechanism that's underneath the chair that they're using for when they're stitching. So you need to factor that in as well and look at what the base of yours is. And again, so that's why you find people who really like their Lowrys, because it swings across and in front and the stand is off on the side. So, you know, I had a friend of mine was making a comment to me this week where she said the thing that she liked about the stand that I was talking about was that, and again, you know, you look at Jerusalem, that's a pretty big project width-wise, and the way that my stand is set up, I have the ability to easily, you know, move it in one direction or the other. Now, if you move it so it's really, you know, like way off to the left, the risk on my stand is that it starts to tilt a little bit. But, you know, I have 2 feet. I just put my feet on the legs and go, problem solved. But again, that's, you need to know the sizes of projects you're working on that you're planning on using and whether or not that is going to affect, you know, and again, for example, on the Lowry, I do know they have an adapter bar that is extra that you can buy to help when you're dealing with those large projects. But again, I don't have one. I've never used it. Can't comment. I do know that it exists. All right. And with that, okay, that's most of it. The thing that I forgot to talk about last week is Monday, April 19th was technically my Flosstube anniversary. It was so on April 19th, 2020 is when I recorded and uploaded my very first video. So yeah, I'm 1 year of doing weekly videos, and I have been very successful that I've actually put one up every single week. The interesting thing for me, again, I was talking to a friend of mine here, and she was like, why would you, why are you doing a Flosstube video? Not that she thinks it's a bad idea. She's like, but what was the impetus behind it? Part of it was, you know, welcome to the pandemic, and I was like, I should try something new. Second of all, I felt it would drive me to do more stitching, because, you know, you can't show up with it and do a Flosstube where you go like, I didn't do any stitching this week. That's not going to make for very good Flosstube. And I will say it has been very successful. I think over the course of this past 12 months, it has been the most stitching I have done in years. Now, there are certainly years there where a lot of the lack of stitching had to do with my work situation and how crazy busy I was. But again, it's given me something where I go, I have to show up with something. And as we all know, some weeks I have more stitching than others, but I like to think that's a regular thing for stitchers. Some weeks you have a good stitching week, and some weeks where you go like, I just really didn't. 12 things interrupted, something got busy, who knows what happened. And I go, I view my Flosstube as if you're having a visit with me, Judy. And what you see is what you get. And you get my real life stitching and what really happens in my stitching world and what I'm doing and all of the craziness that goes along with that. So for those of you who have subscribed and thank you for coming back and welcome and joining me in my crazy little stitching world. All right. And with that, let's get to some stitching. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the lovely Anne Morison. So again, this is Anne Morison from Hands Across the Sea Samplers. This is an out-of-print chart. And there's going to be several discussion points on this. All right. So this is where I got to this week. So I finished off my red alphabet here. You can see from up here, I still have this one lowly thing. So I've deliberated and deliberated and deliberated, but I think I have found an answer. I think I found an answer on Saturday. So, so my stitching tonight, I'm going to start on this and I'm going to start it with what I think the solution is to my problem. Check back next week, see how I do. I also did my green alphabet row here. Now this is, if any of you know Anne Morison, you will be able to tell that I have adjusted my alphabet. So clearly mine was never going to be a true reproduction. 1, I've changed all the colors. 2, I'm changing the centering on, already I've changed the centering on this band, this band, this band. I think I changed a little bit on this one. This one didn't need quite so much, but I still think I changed it slightly. And this one I have reworked. So what have I reworked? I have reworked it so that it is a complete alphabet. So in the actual Anne Morison chart, a couple of the letters were done twice, one as a capital, one as a lowercase. I have removed the capitals. I have put in the missing lowercase ones. I have adjusted some of the spacing. If I had to do it all over again, there's probably one more adjustment I would make, but it's good enough. So this is one where it's like, I got to things like, I probably could have done that slightly better, but from anybody standing far away, they would never be able to tell the difference. So never mind and move on. So we're fine. I'm leaving it as is. You will notice I also have not filled in any of these borders here, which was also one of the possibilities. So I am planning on reworking a lot of, well, certainly, so this area right here, I am planning on reworking that. And this is going to sound horrible. Tune in next year for what that looks like. But it came to me this last week what I wanted to do and what it meant. And so I needed to put some questions out into my family for some stuff. I'm still waiting to get some of those answers back. And until I get those answers, I really want to not fill in some of these borders because it may cause some adjustments up there as to the colors that I use for those borders, because I may need to change what those borders are because of what my intention is for how I'm going to change this area here. Anyway, and for anybody who's new here, what I'm doing is I'm starting a new project every month. So this was Ann Morison April. So I'm only, according to my 2021 stitching plan, and this is why it's called Let's Talk Prepping for Mania and Plans. That's coming at the end. This is part of my 2021 plan. I am only planning on stitching this particular chart for the month of April. So come the end of this week, this project in its complete and unfettered, unfinished state is going away until 2022. It's, as far as I know right now, is not coming back out in 2021, which I'm fine with. Again, and again, having looked at now, I will also confess I didn't get this correct the first time I went around. I had to rework my little J. I did it the way that I thought I was going to want it, and then I had to go back and fix it. Anyway, I thought it was fine, went to bed. The next day when I looked at it, it's like, you can't live with that, so I had to rip out, fix it, come back. Anyway, so a lot of counting involved in here, a lot of spacing, rethinking. You should see the pieces of paper I have where I've, you know, added up and divided and subtracted and all the things that went into that. Came close, but again, could have done it slightly better. So I'm really thinking that when I do my rework for that bottom part, I'm actually going to chart it out for myself so that if I don't get that one really well, if I don't have it planned out, I think it's not going to work out for me. So I think I'm actually going to have to chart that out, which is also something I'm going to have to work on over the course of the rest of this year at some point. So I'm not anxious to rush that process, and I need to do that part. Again, I'm also missing a couple of pieces of information that I need to get so I can continue on with that one. The other thing, for those of you that are have got your eagle eyes out, you may notice that Ann Morison is not on the same frame that it was last week. Because I also felt I didn't do a great job of sort of going, what is my real favorite? Because I think at the end of one I said, yeah, I like this, I use this, I'm fine with this. You know, but clearly because I own one of, I feel like, every type of scroll rod out there, it means I keep looking for something better, new, and exciting. So last week I had been stitching Ann on my handy clamp. And so as soon as I got off of that video and was getting ready to stitch that night, I went, well, this is ridiculous. Take it off the handy clamp, put it on your, there it is. Put it on your roller frame and see if you have a preference. So I put it on there and I was all excited. I was putting it on and I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. This might actually take the #1 spot. And, you know, and then I was stitching on it and I went, it's not so, in terms of tension, absolutely like drum tight for me. The answer is the best one that I have that will ensure drum tight all the way across is the Omonic. The really big downside to the Omonic is it is a very, very heavy frame. So I would say that the Omonic is probably 3 times as heavy as any of the other frames that I have in my stash and that I use. So it is quite a bit heavier. But in terms of drum tightness all the way across, I do think that that is my winner. In terms of tension between the roller frame and the handy clamp, since I've reminded myself this week, I think the tension is the same for those two products. But I will say I'm going to put my roller frame as the #2 only because it is much easier to load your fabric onto the roller frame than it is on the handy clamp. So there is that. Again, if you do the tips and tricks, so again, it's not that I dislike the handy clamp, but I will say I think it's easier to load your fabric on this than the handy clamp. So Omonic in term is #1 simply for tension, big negative, really heavy. followed by Roll-A-Frame is in the number 2 spot due to its ease of loading the fabric. Number 3 is the Handy Clamp. Number 4 is the American Dream products. And then there's the number 5 spot, which is the one that I don't like, so we're not really going to talk about that one. The other things that I forgot to tell you about this one, so I was clear about explaining to you that they had the ends that were color-coded and you get them together. The part that I neglected to tell you is that they actually, so the non-color-coded end have numbers on them so that you know how long your scroll rod is without having to measure them, which is actually very helpful. So this is a 21-inch scroll rod, and again, they've got it on both sets. So forgot that. And they do have a little magnet here, which can be used as a needle minder. For many of you who've been watching me for a while, you know that I tend to keep a needle minder on here myself. So I don't tend to use this one, you know, even this week when I was working on it, I didn't tend to use it. You know, it's there. If you don't like having a needle minder on your fabric, then this is a great option as well. And you could put a little bit of magnet glue it onto any of your other sidebars for your scroll frames and put it there as well. All right, that's Anne. So again, so my big goal for this week is just to try what I think the answer is to solve this problem here and get this band finished. And then, to be perfectly honest, I think that's it. Once that's done, we're done with Anne Morison. So even if I got that done tonight, I'm going to end up not working on Anne for the rest of the week, which is totally fine because the rest of that time can then be devoted to, wait for it, oops, the never-ending Nativity. All right, so the never-ending Nativity, the Marbeck Nativity, the Serendipity Nativity, the Bethlehem Star, still working on the center panel. It is gonna, and again, so this is why I think it's totally fine if I only work on Anne a little bit this week, because it'll give me more time to work on the never-ending Nativity. And we're all gonna be happy when the never-ending Nativity is completed. Very much me. All right, so what did I get accomplished? Hey, look! The angel, she has a head, she has an arm, she has the start of her wing. So I feel like not a huge amount of progress on this week. I spent, well, for a variety of reasons, I spent time doing a couple of other things. But hey, progress is progress, and it was very, yeah, I kind of look and go like, she's got a head. If I can just fill this in, we're off to the races. So again, if I finish that part on Anne and then spend the rest of the week until May 1st working on the never-ending Nativity, I think that's actually going to be a very good outcome for me. I think I'm going to hit the end of April and be very pleased with where I'm at on both of these projects. So not a lot to talk on this one. I'm still not done, but we're making progress. You'll be so good when this one is accomplished. All right, so that's the never-ending Nativity. Sorry, I'm just looking at the pile over here. All right. Stashquisitions. Okay, it's confession time. I'm going to flunk out of Stitch from Stash, certainly for the period January through June. I mentioned it last week that I'd bought something which was going to make it really tight to fit in being successful for this January through June part. And then over the course of this week, due to some plans that I've come up with, which we're going to talk when we get to the topic for this week, I just threw it to the wind and went, I'm so close to not being able to be successful on this. Holding back now is like, forget it. So just realize that you have failed at this one, which is okay. Failure is fine. There are always things to be learned. People fail at things all the time. It's a human nature thing, and I'm not going to beat myself up for not being able to be successful at my first bout of Stitch from Stash. I'm still doing some thinking because I'm going to maybe try again and do Stitch from Stash for the July through December period. So I've completely failed for the January through June part, which is fine. Because what I have learned about myself is the goal about stitching from stash is great for those of the people who I think are participating in the group where they've actually got a bunch of other projects. You know, I tend to be a fairly monogamous stitcher. Well, if you're watching this year, it doesn't look like, because I have a whole bunch of half-finished whips now. But that will actually benefit me for 2022 if I, because I'm going to try and do Stitch from Stash for sure in 2022, because I've learned some things. And part of it is if you start all of these really big projects and you, like, I have no shot of finishing them in the month that I start them. And my 2021 plan is that I'm starting something new every single month. And I'm not adjusting that plan to allow for Stitch from Stash. I'm sticking with that plan because I love that plan. I love the projects that I've got in there. I'm really looking forward to them. I've even been looking at the ones that I've got planned for starting through the July through December. Again, several of them I do not think I'm going to get accomplished in their month. So hence, again, could be a little bit of a problem for the Stitch from Stash budget thing. But anyway, I still want to start them. I like the charts that I've planned. I've got them kitted up. I've got their fabric. They're ready to go, and I want to start them. And I want to start them in their months. And I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm not adjusting my stitching plan for 2021 in the least to allow for the fact that I did not choose those starts very well if I wanted to be successful at Stitch from Stash. So that's fine. Lessons learned. Doesn't mean I'm giving up from Stitch from Stash from entirety, and what I've been doing for Stitch from Stash so far this year has actually been really helpful. I've done way better at, you know, not buying as many charts as I think I otherwise would have. You know, I think it's been really helpful about that. My whole, like, hey, you really like that? Now think about your stash. Would you rather start the new one, or would you rather start something that you already have in your stash? And that's usually where I go, like, yeah, but I like the one in my stash better. Doesn't mean that I don't like the new one. In some cases, I really like the new ones, and at some point I probably will want to get them. But I've said, until you actually are successful about knocking out some of the ones that you already have in your stash, don't get the new one, because you like the ones you already have better than the new one. So that's been a very helpful exercise for me. So I think that's been great. There's always things to be learned from the things that you try. Again, I'm not giving up on Stitch from Stash entirely. We've just had a little bit of a kablooey here for a couple of reasons. And again, so those silks from Dyeing for Cross Stitch, I don't regret buying those at all. I'm thrilled that I have them. They're factoring into some plans that I've got, which we'll be talking about. So I don't regret those at all. So things learned, but I am officially a failure at Stitch from Stash for the January through June portion of 2021. As you can tell from my face, I'm clearly crushed by my failure. Oh well. Again, I'm a work in progress, but I'm doing better on certain things than I was doing before, and that's a positive outcome. And with that, for a friend of mine who's going, like, would you hurry up and show some stash? I'm dying to see some stash. So I mentioned this last week that I had bought something from one of my LNSs, and I'm very fortunate that I have two. So I have something from each of my LNSs that I have referenced in previous videos, and I'm finally going to show them to you. All right, here is part one. So this is the one, so I got this from the Stitching Corner in Cochrane. I'm going to start with this. The Stoney Creek magazine. Now, way back in olden times, you used to be able to sign up and get a subscription to the Stoney Creek magazine. A number of years ago, they stopped that. So the only way that you can get your Stoney Creek magazine is through an LNS or an online shop. You can no longer subscribe directly through Stoney Creek. And then, quite a few years ago, I would say the Stoney Creek had a bad year. I was very unhappy with the magazine. was actually a really interesting time frame because that's 1 year where I had not gotten my magazine renewed as a Christmas gift. And when I went into the shop and looked at them, there was like an entire year where I didn't like the stuff that was in the magazine. I was like, whew, if this is where they're going, that could be the end. And then, of course, the very next year, you know, it was back to things that I liked. But because I'd had that bad year, I was like, maybe I'm better off just buying them one at a time. But I do have, at the Stitching Corner, they will take your name, and so they will bring one in for you every month. Now, I don't know if this is just for me, because I've been a long time shopper there. So they bring one in, they keep it reserved for me. If I don't like it, I don't have to buy it. So far, there hasn't been one that I've left behind. So again, they phoned and said the new one was in, so I went and picked it up. I'm not going to do a flip through with this. If you want to see what's in the current magazine, the Stoney Creek website, stonycreek.com, is fantastic. You can go and you can look at any of the prior magazines that are still available to be ordered and see what's in that particular issue. They show you all the charts that are published in that particular issue. And in fact, for a lot of the back issues, they even have a shopping list. So you can pick a shopping list and get the stuff for the project if that's what you're doing. So the one particular project in here that really appeals to me, if I can find it, and knowing me, it will take me way longer than it should there. This one. So this is called Ecclesiastes 3:1 mini series. So again, it's just a big long, it's just long, a bell pull type situation. Now they clearly haven't finished it as a bell pull. They've done it in a frame, which is fine. Clearly based off of Ecclesiastes 1, to everything there is a season. And certainly, again, I've been talking about that there are some things going on in my family. They're all health related for relatives of mine. So this is certainly resonating with me quite a bit, that to everything there is a season. So that's why I like this. So it's going to come out over the course of multiple issues. I'm thinking it's probably all of the issues for 2021. So you'll be seeing me picking up this magazine for the rest of 21, so I can get all of this accomplished. So I can have the entire chart for this. Again, yeah. So I like that one. So for sure this one was coming home, and certainly the next three. Is this the winter one? Yeah, winter 2021. I'm pretty sure that it's coming out over the 4. So 4 magazines a year. I'm pretty sure that chart is going to be issued over these 4 issues of 2021. So got that. Okay, these next 3 things is I'm trying to solve a problem for one of the projects that I'm working on. I can't find a good solution. So the problem is I usually can't make a firm decision until I've actually put the thread into a project and stitched it up and, you know, thought about it and reflected on it and left it hanging out and come back and looked at it. And, you know, so just standing there in a store and sort of saying, will this work? Sometimes the answer comes like blindingly easily where you go like, that's the perfect answer. The one that I'm currently working on is not quite so clear cut. So here's the problem. I'm buying multiple things so I can try to solve my problem. So I've got, this is Petite Treasure Braid. What's my number? PB56. I have got Petite Silk Lame Braid, which is SP43. Wow, that's, okay, man, that just does not look good. I don't know how to get it. Ooh, it's very glary. Like that? That's better. Clearly, I'm trying to solve a problem. They're not exactly the same. This is my 3rd option, which is an unlabeled Krynic braid. I'm actually thinking this might be the solution. So clearly there's a family of colors that I'm trying to find a metallic for that I'm really struggling with. So I picked those 3, and until I actually, you know, But again, at least I don't necessarily have to cut the piece off, because I'm one of those people where I can take off a bunch of this and then sort of do a few stitches and see how I'm doing, and then unstitch them if it's not the right one and put it, and still I won't have done anything. Anyway, I'm weird like that. But so yeah, so there are 3 versions of that I'm trying to solve my problem with. I think this is the answer, but I'm not 100% sure. And then this one will come as a surprise to some people. So again, this is a Mill Hill Treasure. This is for a project that is coming up in the back half of 2021. Still, I pulled out my project because I knew that I was missing something for it. Went to the store. So between the 2 stores, again, I'm very grateful. I have 2 of them. One of them had them in stock, and that was great. Yeah, so there's this. It was really fun pulling out that bag of that project, because I looked at that project and went, I really love this project. I'm going to be so excited when I start this project. Back half of 22, again, which is why I'm not changing my plan for 2021 at all, because I'm really looking forward to all of the things that I'm planning on starting in the back half of 2021. All right, so one of the other things that I got, so this is my Needlework Expo haul, again, which I did very well at. I was quite restrained in what I got. If I were smart, I would have taken these out of the plastic covers, because they'll know we're going to have a problem with that. So a little bit of crinkling, sorry about that. That reminds me I was supposed to adjust. Anyway, so I'm going to haul them out. You will see a theme to my Needlework Expo purchases. So Jeanette Douglas's Blooming Bouquet, number 6 Hopeful. I talked about this several times. Because I have seen the model for this live and in person, and it is glorious. I love this one. I love, love, love this one. So there was never any doubt that I was going to get this chart. So I absolutely have the chart. I did not get the thread pack for this just yet. That was where I was being really good about my Stitch from Stash, is that I did not get the chart pack. Anyway, doesn't mean while I'm in this period of knowing that I'm failing, I might get not the chart pack, the thread pack. I might accidentally pick up the thread pack for this. I love this one. Love, 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 love. Love this one. Okay, so that was one. This is 2. This is Jeanette Douglas's flower tray set. So this includes the chart to do the drum, this tray, and this scissor fob. I did not get the thread pack for this one either. See, look at that huge restraint, which check back later and see how I do. I might have an accidental purchase of some thread packs now that I failed at Stitch from Stash. And then my third one, from Jeanette Douglas again. Let's do what we love and do it a lot. I love this one too. And again, it's also finished like a little tray here as well. So I will say for these ones, part of the reason why my willpower was not very good and I rushed out and got these ones, again, like I say, I've got a list of about 8 other ones from Needlework Expo that I have on a list where I rushed out and got these ones. Part of it has to do with the fact that I've actually seen the models for all of these live and in person, and they're lovely. Now, Jeanette's pictures are pretty good. Like, there are always some charts where you look at them and go, like, the picture that is on the front of this chart, does it no justice? No justice at all. And, like, you know, and it's one of those things with photography. Some of the stuff is hard to get a good picture, and I totally get that. Jeanette's cover photos on her charts are pretty good. Pretty good. Still not as good as the real thing. And because I had the opportunity to see these live and in person, the models, these were, I just was like, I was like, I'm done. I'm going to need those. I'm going to need those. So Needlework Expo came. I placed my order with my LNS. I got them. I'm very happy with them. And the other thing that I picked up at that same time so that was from Traditional Stitches, because they were participating in Needlework Expo. And then this is part of that order that I had. Wow, the reflection is just like, I don't know what's going on with that. Anyway, so this is the banding that I got to do the Sweet Pea Bell Pull, which I showed you. So that's that chart that I showed you that I bought all the anchor flosses for, which I really like. I was going to remember to bring them in here so that I could hold them up against this. But again, this is antique white banding. Now again, with huge amounts of glare, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know how to fix that. But anyway, because the rest of me is not very glary. And it's not like there's plastic on this, but anyway. One of the things to note is that banding is very, very hard to come by. So it's not like there was a huge amount of banding options. And again, I'm very happy with the one that I got. I don't know that you're going to be able to see this with the glare. So it's got a little bit of, it's called pyramid banding, because it's got this little edging on here. But it is the right size where this is 27 count banding. This is available from Witchelt. And so my Sweet Pea chart will fit on this banding. And again, you could pick any piece of fabric and just stitch it on there and make it into a bell pull, no problem. I wanted to really do it on bell pull fabric, or not bell pull fabric, banding, just because of this edge. Wow, like that glare is just killing me, right? So now, that was a personal choice. It would have been cheaper if I just chosen plain fabric, but I wanted it anyway, and so that's what I ordered. Now, upside, technically, I ordered this in 2020 as part of that big order that I put in, but anyway, never mind that. So that has arrived to be paired up. So I kept all of those anchor flosses for that project, and because that was an electronic pattern, I have not printed out all of the pages for it just yet, but there is a bag that has the cover photo plus all of those anchor flosses to do that project, because you needed multiple skeins of multiple colors to do that chart. So now that I've shown you all my banding, this banding is going to swiftly move into that project bag. So those are the Stashquisitions that I'm going to show on this video. So Miss G, I hope you're happy. I've showed some Stashquisitions. I hope you're happy. All right, and with that, let's get into the topic. I know, 48 minutes in. This is going to be shorter than the movie from last week. So let's talk about prepping for Mania. I'm going to start by talking about, so what is Stitch Mania? And it's funny because there are always people who are asking, what is the Stitch Mania that everybody's going on? One, it's because maybe you just haven't heard about it. If you've been watching Flosstube for a while, you've heard it multiple times. So for some of you, all of you, a lot of you, sorry, some of this is going to be repetitive, but I'm going to redo this. I did it, same thing last year for May. I'm going to recover the topic just in case for anybody who's new and is like, what is up with this Stitch Mania thing? So Stitch Mania is a group that is on Facebook. It is no longer accepting new members to the Facebook group because as of June the 1st, 2021, the group is going to be archived. It is a very large group. I didn't look today to see how many members there are. It's over 20,000 for sure members of that Facebook group. And the reason why they're archiving it is because the two individuals who started that group, it's a huge group, a lot of people posting, and I can't even imagine how much work it is to try to moderate that group and make sure that you're monitoring it and dealing with people who are potentially stirring up trouble or complaining, or who knows what's going on. And, you know, that's the administrative side of a Facebook group is something that I don't see at all, which I'm totally fine with. But I will say, I just can't imagine how much work that is. I'm sure it's a lot of work. And even though there's 2 of them, you know, they're just going, it's more time than they are prepared to continue doing, which I totally get. I have no problems. They are archiving it, so if you're a member of that group already, it's not like the group is going away. All the posts that are there from when it started, I think way back in 2015, will still be there. You can see what people posted. You can see the projects. So if you're already a member of that group, the posts are still going to be there for you to go back and look and search for things and read things and see what people have done, which is great. If you are new and you're not part of that group, that's okay too. People are still going to be doing things. So here's the recap of how it got started. There was a group of people down in Texas who wanted to do something really manic and crazy, and push their boundaries. So in 2015, their big idea was that they were going to start 15 new projects for the first 15 days of May in 2015. That was going to be the crazy thing. 50 new projects. You only worked on it for 1 day, and they were going to do it for 15 consecutive days. Then they decided that that wasn't quite crazy enough for them, which was then followed up by that they were going to start a new start every day in the month of May. So 31 new starts. Hence, it's called Mania, because it's manic, it's crazy, it's anyway. So that's Mania, Maynia. Now, since then, it's evolved, which it's great. The answer is what Mania is whatever you make it. So there are people who do monogamania. So they pick one specific project and they say, this is all. So they're usually people who work on multiple projects and do rotations. And so crazy for them is that they're only going to work on one. Monogamania. There are people who only work on mirabilia projects and they call it Miramania, or they only work on mermaid pictures where they call it Mermania, or they call it, so Stephanie Webb from Lindy Stitches has a version where she calls Stitchsania because she doesn't want to be crazy and out of control. So she's looking for some sane. So hers is Stitchsania. Fat Quarter Shop is doing their own version, which is FQS Stitch Mania, I think is what it's called. Dina from Half Stitch Cross Stitch, she's doing multiple choice mania, where she's posting on Instagram 2 projects. So for each week in the month of May, she's going to post 2 projects on her Instagram page and have the people who watch her feed on Instagram vote, and whoever's the winner, that's the project she's going to work on for that week. And so we get to choose for her. So the real answer is, what is Mania? The Mania is set yourself a goal for the month of May and try to accomplish that goal in the month of May. Whatever that is. It can be Mania Crazia if you want, or it could be Sania if you want something. If you feel like enough in your world is already manic and crazy and mania, if all you're looking for is a little bit of sanity in your life, you can do Stitchsania, or you can do Monogamania, or whatever it is. The answer is, set yourself a goal and see if you can accomplish that in the month of May. There's no cross-stitch police. Ta-da! Make it what you want. All right. So that is what Mania is. So my prepping for Mania is actually well in hand. I was talking with a friend of mine earlier this week because, of course, I came up with a 2021 plan. And when by January the 1st of this year, I had those projects largely kitted up. Again, as you saw from that one button I got, it's not that all of them were 100% kitted up, but it was a really high percentage. And so for me, I hauled out my bag for June. I said to my friends, like, I hauled it out and said, I just thought I should check and make sure, because I felt I had fully kitted it up before we hit January the 1st, and it didn't have any of those nagging suspicions, like I knew I had one treasure to get. But I figured I should haul out the bag anyway, because the worst thing I want to do is open up that bag on May 1 and go, ooh, you maybe forgot a few things. So I opened up the bag, checked all the bag, and went, great, I am 100% sure. My fabric is in the bag, my fabric is serged in the bag, all my threads and floss and metallics and beads, everything's in the bag ready to go. My working copy of my chart is in the bag. The funny thing is my working copy is in the bag. The original is not in the bag. So before I get to next week, I need to, that's not true. So May 1st is Saturday. And as you know, I record these on a Sunday. Record and try to post them on Sunday. It depends on how big the file is. So I will only have one day of stitching. And while you may not have enjoyed it, it was a lot of fun for me. So just the same way I did for April, come May 2nd, so next week's video, I'm going to hold up my new May start and show you how far I've gotten, which won't be very far because it will be 1 day's worth. And I'm already going to tell you, I don't think anybody's going to guess it right. But for me, the fun part is people who guess and go, because sometimes it means like, ooh, didn't think about that, but I can see how they got there, but whatever. Anyway, so for me, the fun part is the guessing part. For you, you may go like, I don't want to guess at all, which is totally fine. Welcome to, you can sort of go like, and not even trying. That's good too. So 2 weeks from now is when I will reveal the name of the project I'm actually working on, and hopefully by then it will actually start to actually look like what that project is, as opposed to, I'm fully expecting next week you're just going to see a blob of one particular color. That's what I think it's going to look like. So my May project is ready to go. I am looking forward to starting this project. I will tell you right now that this is an older project. I think the copyright on this project, I think it is in the 2000s, but I am going to say it's in the early 2000s. So this is, you know, an almost either 20 or almost 20 year chart. So I think it's great. I'm finally starting it. Even now, I think I've owned it since it came out, and even now I love this chart, so I can't wait to get started on it. So that's great. Again, my 2021 plan, I love my 2021 stitching plan, and I don't care that I'm going to end the year with a bunch of, you know, not finished projects, because I will have started on some of the charts that I've been wanting to do for, wait for it, decades. Anyway, so that is my Mania project is ready to go. All it needs to do is get loaded onto some scroll rods, and I'm going to be ready for Saturday. I will tell you that whenever I get done that Anne Morison, because I haven't figured out which scroll rods they're going on, but we all know I've got a few choices there. So once Anne is done, it will be time to sit down and look at that project and pick the scroll rods for it. I'm actually going to load my project onto my scroll rods so it's ready to go. Yeah. Saturday, new project, new start. Very excited about that. So those are my Mania plans. But those are not the only plans I've been working on. I alluded to this last week where I've gone a little plan crazy. And for me, that's a good thing. Because what I have discovered is, so 2021 is the first year that I came up with a year-long stitching plan of any sort, of any kind. And I've really enjoyed it. I enjoyed kitting it up. I enjoyed having it ready for the start of the year. I've enjoyed having a plan. Again, you know, even now as I'm looking at what I'm planning on starting in the back half of 2021, I'm excited about all of those projects. I'm looking forward to them. I like what I've chosen. I think it's great. So I love my plan. And a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that I was starting to think about what my January 2022 plan was, because if I needed to get something, given the supply chain issues which are still occurring for the cross-stitch industry, I felt that I needed to get on that. So I have successfully mapped out my January 2021. I'm very happy about my 2021. So far, in terms of kitting required, I had all of the charts. I had a lot of the floss, not all of it. So I've mapped out some floss things that I need to do. The fabric, certainly for January, I've got, and in a couple of cases, I've got a couple of options. So I've, again, got to do some figuring out on what my final answers to those are. But I was struggling with it, and then the solution came to me, and I love my solution. I love the projects that I've chosen for January. I think they're great. I'm very excited about them. And that's when I went, you should maybe, and so then I went, well, maybe you should map out the first quarter of 2022. And when I solved the January problem, 2022 came together pretty quickly, which I was also happy about. But then, because I'm redonkulous, I kept going. So I now have, I'm not going to show you what the plan is. I have now mapped out my 2022 stitching plan, my 2023 stitching plan, my 2024 stitching plan, and my 2025 stitching plan. I have a 5-year plan for my stitching. Now, this is not to say, so a friend of mine was sort of saying like, oh, I'd hate that because I wanted, it was like, sorry, it's a plan. It's not like a rule. And even if it's a stitching rule, it's my rule, which means I get to change it anytime I want. So this is my plan, but I'm happy about my plan, but my plan is subject to change. And already I have some writing on here and some arrows and some crossing out and some new things put in, which is that's totally what a plan is about. So I think it's funny. In my jobs, I always laugh that sometimes people sort of say you need to come up with what your 5-year career goal is. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Some people go like, where do you want to be in 10 years? What's your career goal? I've been never really great about what my career goal is, and I'm thinking it's hilarious, but I have a 5-year stitching plan. One of those two things is more fun than the other. So I'm very happy that I have this. So I'm starting to work, and again, let's not kid ourselves. 2024, 2025, there's probably a very high likelihood that some of that plan is going to change. But don't get me wrong. I look at this and I go like, oh, I want to start that. Anyway, not to say it isn't going to happen. But my 2022 plan is in pretty good shape. For those, and again, for someone who's usually a monogamous stitcher, some of you don't like to have a lot of whips, and I get that. So far, the number of whips that I'm leaving partially finished is not causing me any problems because I'm really good at out of sight, out of mind is how I deal with that. But I acknowledge I don't want to end the year and have a bunch of unfinished projects, which I know I'm going to end the year with a bunch of unfinished projects, and I'm okay with that. But I don't want to do all of 2022 and just add to the unfinished projects. Because if I do that every year, then I am going to be one of those people who has like 86 whips. And I don't think I'm going to be happy. So part of the plan is also making sure that some of that the projects that I have started this year are factored into my plan for 2022 as well. Now, there are things like Jerusalem, which I was very clear. I don't know how many years it's going to take me to get through Jerusalem. I have a slot for Jerusalem in 2022. I still don't think Jerusalem is going to get finished in 2022. And again, I'm okay with that. That's fine for me. But it is factored into my plan. So it is for sure going to get worked on. And again, Stitch from Stash 2022, I've got things in here where I'm pretty sure I'm actually going to get them finished in 2022, which is going to help when I'm trying to do Stitch from Stash for 2022. Again, try again. The wrong thing is to try the same thing over and over again and hope for a different result. So I'm going to try again, and I'm going to have a different plan for how I'm going to be successful at that. Now, how many tries it's going to take for me to become successful at Stitch from Stash is anybody's guess. I wasn't successful on try number 1, and I'm okay with that. But we're going to try again. We're going to see how we do. But I have a 5-year stitching plan. I'm very happy about it. Same thing. I look at this plan, I look at what's on here, and I go like, oh, I want to work on those projects. And I look on here and I go, and I've got my carryover stuff factored into this too. So hopefully those projects that I start this year that are going to get carried over, some of them I'm hoping to finish in 2022. Some of them, which I started this year, are not going to get finished in 2022, and that's okay. Now, again, plans are made to be changed and all that kinds of thing, so it doesn't mean that there's no flexibility, but I have a 5-year plan and it's fun. Now, that's too, again, for people who go like, I want to do everything on the spur of the moment, I need to be entirely spontaneous and choose from what, hey, that's great too. Your stitching only has to work for you. It's your hobby. So as long as you're doing something that makes you happy and you're enjoying what you're doing, that's fantastic. This was super fun for me to put together. I loved putting it together. I'm looking forward. And again, if nothing else, regardless of what else is going on in life, and there are always ups and downs, some longtime friends of my family, they're an older couple, they're in their late 80s, when they were having their 60th wedding anniversary, which I got to go to, they're like, we've had good times and bad times and great times and awful times. That's life. There's always going to be good times and bad times, and times where you have lots of time to stitch and times where you have no time to stitch, and everything in between. But for me, stitching is a great stress reliever. It brings me enjoyment and joy and fun. And I, when I'm changing colors and picking new fabrics and, redesigning things, that brings me fun too. So yeah, you've got to put that in those times of, great stress. Sometimes for me, just sitting down and putting in some stitches is the best way to help fix some of that stress, or, the bad health things that are going on in my family right now. Stitching, there's part of my stitching plan actually has to do with that. So again, it's how we deal with certain things. Anyway, so with that, those are my plans. Hence, while I'm flunking at Stitch from Stash, like till we hit July 1, it might be a little bad because now I have a 2022 stitching plan where, don't get me wrong, some of these things I already have the stuff for, and I know it. I know that I have the fabric for it. I know that I have the chart. And generally my starting point is I start with a chart that I already have. I'm not usually putting something that I don't have into the plan, although that's not beyond the realm of possibility either. I'm usually starting with a chart that I already have, like some of them, like February. So January got planned out. February was super easy, where I was just like, it's something that I have loved, and I have it. I have the chart. I have the fabric. I have the overdyed silk flosses already for it. I have the beads for it. I like February's project. But again, February has some very specific things that have to occur in February before I can get that really great new start, which again is hopefully going to drive me to accomplish some things so that I can get my new start. So that gives you a little bit of a clue. Some of the starts that are in the plan are absolutely conditional on finishing something. You can't start the special thing until you finish something. And again, so that's part of how I'm working my way through some of the whips that I know that are going to be rolling over into from 2021 into 2022. If you want to hear about someone who's got a crazy 2022 plan, look up Jen Lee from Quirks and Stitches. She's got a YouTube video. If you look at her last one, whew, that girl has got a plan. Her plan makes my plan look like child's play. So I will put a link to hers in the notes below if you want to go look at a crazy plan. Her plan is not for me. Her plan is for her. And I'm glad that she's really excited about it. And it's something, her plan works for her and is bringing her joy and excitement. And I think that's fantastic. Her plan is not for me. And that's okay too, because I have my plan and my plan works for me. So hopefully you can come up with the plan that works for you. And for some of you, that plan is going to be, I'm going to work on whatever I want on any given day just because I said so. And that's a great plan too. And with that, we are now officially over an hour. I hope everybody has a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, find some time to do some stitching, and I hope to see you next week for next week's video, which will be the beginning of May. And again, happy Flosstube anniversary to me. Judy the City Stitcher has officially turned 1 on YouTube. Have a great week, guys.